And just like that,
It's magic.
it is magic. Hey, April.
Hi. Hello.
All right, you guys. So welcome. If you are new to me, my name is Jen Lehner. I'm a digital marketing and systems strategist, and I teach people how to hire and train their perfect match virtual assistants, people who will have your back for years, not just weeks and months. And we are in the middle of a big campaign to let the world know about this program, which is really not so much a program as much as it is a system. And I figured, like, what better way to tell you about it than to just bring people who have used the system to tell you about it. So that's why we've been doing this all day. We'll be doing it a bit tomorrow as well, because I want you to hear like the kind of tasks that they're sharing with their team, what they've been able to do since they've built a team or just hired one virtual assistant. We're gonna and so if you have questions, put them here. And right now we are being joined by the most awesome April Pertuis of lightbeamers.com. And April helps people grow their businesses and just accelerate everything in their lives, making it better by teaching women how to share their stories. Did I get that right?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. Awesome. And so today she's going to help up level all of us by sharing how she deployed this Front Row CEO system. And I want to hear, April, like, tell us a little bit about your business, where you were before you hired, what your experience was like through the hiring process, and where you are now.
Yes. Well, I say often Front Row CEO literally did change everything in my business because I finally got help. I got support. I got, people in that could do tasks that I not only didn't want to do, but also really wasn't equipped to do. And where I was before doing all of this, hiring virtual assistants, implementing the system the way you teach it, I was drowning. That's where I was. I was drowning. I was growing my business, beginning to have a modicum of success and getting traction, starting to make, a dent in the growth trajectory. And that's when things really started to stall out at the same time, because I felt like there really was an end point where I cannot take on any more clients. So there was a maximum capacity and I had reached it. And I knew I couldn't grow beyond that point because there was literally no space left for me to do anything else, and on top of everything else, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I try to be a good friend, and I was not doing much of that very well at the same time. So really, I came to you and you said you have to get help. You have to hire somebody. And I didn't really think that I was ready. I thought that that number one, I couldn't afford it at that time, even though my business was starting to really generate good revenue. It was still, there were other things to pay for and also needed to pay myself. And I didn't think that I could really afford to pay for someone full time. That was what I had in my mind, that it had to be full time and that it had to be by American dollar standards. And so there was just no way that I was up for that. The other piece of it was I thought that even if I did hire someone, there was no way they could open their crystal ball and see what was inside my head and start to make sense of how they could even help me. I didn't know how to communicate what I needed and how I could bring somebody on board to train them to take over what I needed them to do. But all of that was covered in Front Row CEO, and systematically you just show us how to do that. Literally you take us by our virtual hand and walk us through step by step, not only how to find someone that you can afford and that doesn't have to be full-time right away, and then also how to onboard them, how to start offloading tasks and all of that nature. So I started, this was 3 years ago when I took the course and implemented. And I started with my first virtual assistant. And here I am 3 years later with 3 full-time virtual assistants, hired them and onboarded them by implementing the same system 2 more times. So it's been amazing. My business has been able to grow much beyond where I was when I was in that growth stage, but also stuck stage. And we're just able to do so much more now. And we're able to execute on some of my ideas that I wanted to do. Like we launched a membership, we launched a podcast. I would have never done any of those things where I was, 3 years ago, because there was no way I was going to do any of those things. So we're able to serve our clients better. We're able to reach more people and make more money. At the end of the day, we're running businesses over here. And so we're able to make more money and have it be efficient and run a business for growth instead of just trying to put out fires.
For sure. Is the first VA you ever hired still with you today, 3 years later?
That's the same one is still with me. The initial VA, and she started out probably, I don't really recall, but maybe like 20 hours a week and maybe even 15. And then it was very quickly 20 and then 25 and then 30. And then before you know it, I was like, what? I just have to have you full time. And really, she doesn't work for anyone else now except me. Like she's full on integrated into the team, as is one of our other full-time assistants. But we have 3 total. And again, they've been with me since I hired them and used the system, and I haven't had to I haven't had to replace them, because that's another piece of this, of what you teach inside Front Row CEO is also how to onboard them in a way that, builds the culture that you want to build inside your business.
Yes.
And gets them to buy in and see your business as their business, using we language and our language. And so it's our business and our clients instead of my clients, and
yes.
You talk a lot about that in the program, as well as something else that you offer in Front Row CEO is additional training for those actual VAs. So there's training that I gave them when they came on board. And I'm like, go watch these trainings and that you all provided. I didn't have to provide those trainings. It was just it's so good, that I don't know where else you can go and be spoon-fed this type of information that you can implement step by step and have the success that you obviously have, because you have so many of these testimonials, right? Like you have gobs and gobs and gobs of testimonials. I am just one in a bucket of testimonials that you have from other business owners like me that just love what this has been able to do for them.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I mean, and that is something we haven't really spoken about today, is that extra step that we take in giving you the training to give to your VA. So everybody's really on the same page. Everything from technical trainings to live support. Like they get to come to my team's live calls. So you get live calls, like the CEO gets the live calls and support, and so do the VAs. And also, like, I have to speak to the fact that like nobody wants another course. Nobody wants another program. But this is different because this is not as much a program or a course as it is a real system, in that you just don't have to think, you just do. There's the thing, I give it to you, you do not think about it, you just do what is in front of you, and then you do the next thing and you do the next thing. So
that is absolutely true.
Yeah. I mean, that, because it's the only way it would work.
It's an implementable system that is chunked down into like step 1, step 2, and step 3 and beyond, and it's not like, here's the whole enchilada, you figure out what the steps are. I said spoon feed earlier, but that's really what it is like, is being spoon fed exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, it had to be that way because everybody who needs this program the most are the busiest people.
It's busy. Yeah.
Right. So it's sort of like, how do you make that work? Well, this was the answer to that. So I'm not going to keep you very long, but one more question before we go. I want to ask you, people are very interested in specifics in terms of like specific tasks that you're sharing with your VA, like what it really looks like behind the scenes in your business. Can you just share some of the tasks that your VA, your team is taking care of for you?
Well, I could like literally pull up my notes from our team meeting this morning. And,
Awesome.
today it was assigning one of them to create a workbook that matches a training that I have built for someone, for a group that I've been hired to come in and do a training. And so she built the workbook. Another one is, taking care of client calls and email reminders and replays and uploading transcripts. I mentioned my podcast earlier. My team runs the podcast completely. All I do is record the podcast. That's it.
Bravo.
So they do the transcripts, they do the show notes, they pull out little video clips and quotable clips from the podcast each week to then share on social media to drum up interest in the podcast. They create all of the graphics. They connect with the guest. If we had a guest that week, they connect with a guest and tell the guest that their podcast is live, and here's their folder with all of their graphics and everything that they can share on social media. I don't even know where I know where it is, but I don't even touch that stuff. So it's every week it's a podcast episode. So every week we're doing that work around the podcast. One of my assistants is managing our social media full time now. When in the beginning, that was one of the many thousands of hats that I was doing. I was literally publishing, planning, creating, and publishing content in real time. And, I was literally like open my computer every day going, what am I going to talk about? And then I would talk about it and publish it. And then I would start that rabbit hole over again the next day. And, now we're able to plan our content in advance. We can think about it a little bit more. We are much more intentional about it. And after we do that together, then all of that is created and pushed out live, for me, really, so that I don't have to do it. But we do that as a team. But all of that is part of what one of my assistants takes care of. The other one is a big part for a lot of entrepreneurs like me is tech, right? Like I do not want to figure out how to get Kajabi to talk to this, or to get your email system to talk to this program, and all of those things. And so, or to write, set up a landing page or a sales page, or put an offer together with one of your programs, or if you're doing products, you got to list your products or whatever it is. And so one of my assistants handles all of that. They're very, very techy. One of my assistants is also like creating all of the systems and processes and creating like the house where everything lives, so they're very organized on the Google Drive and then Dropbox, and everything's so nice and neat. It's amazing what I'm like, how do y'all do that? Mine's a mess, and theirs is so nice and neat and organized. So that is just really just the beginning of what they do, but those are good examples.
So I love that you said it's just the beginning, because what about the people who are like, I don't think I have that many tasks to hand over?
Yeah. So I didn't have a podcast when I started, right? I didn't have didn't have the content creation plan in place, but because they started taking bits and pieces, just start by making a few graphics on Canva so we can get, some of that social media created in advance, freed up space for me to then see the plan for social media and start to implement. We didn't have really a system for documenting our business. And so Diane, our first assistant that came on board with me, she helped me. We kind of co-created together our system and our project management system, which we use on Trello. So we've built out all these Trello boards. Just today on our call, we were kind of discussing on our group chat that there's an area like we have too many things in too many places. And she's like, oh, I'll fix that. And she just put a board together where everything was in one place. So they take the initiative to fix problems when we have them inside of our business, because usually the business owner is the one that's causing some of those problems, because, they're the ones that are more organized. At least I'm speaking for myself. They're the ones that are more organized. And sometimes I come behind them and undo things. So yeah, like I didn't have any of those things in place either, but just beginning to get a few, even like I said, that first 10, 15 hours a week when I brought Diane on board, I was able to get enough off my plate that it did free us up. And it freed me up to where I'm like, okay, I do have an extra hour a week that I could go record a podcast now. And so once I start recording the podcast, I'm going to give it to you guys and you figure out the plan of what is our production. Of course, I had my ideas of what that could look like, and we collaborated on that. But once we got our production set up, they take over all of it. And now we're 100 podcast episodes in 2 years later.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Right?
Plus,
Every single week. So because they take on so much of that responsibility and those weekly tasks.
I love it. And we do have systems like podcast production in the program that you can, if and when you do start your own podcast, you've got the whole system there. You can use ours and tweak it and make it yours. And so many other systems are in the program as well. Well,
And
April,
I think our board is straight from your system, if I recall. Like, I really do remember that. Yes.
Good. All right. Well, is there anything that like I should have asked you about and didn't, or anything you want to share before we wrap up?
You know, it's hard for me to imagine why anyone would not just jump in and do this sitting in my seat where I am now. But I know, anytime you're thinking, oh, I don't have time to take on one more thing, or yeah, I may not have the money to do this course, or, whatever it is, we all have those things that come up when, launches like this come on our radar. And I would just say, take all those excuses off the table for a minute and just think about the freedom that you desire. Like, if the current situation was anything like mine and you feel like you're drowning, that you have no space to grow, you don't have an ounce of, space left to be able to create a new idea to implement into your business, you're even having a hard time juggling what you have, or you're fearful of success because you're afraid that you won't be able to handle it. That was definitely one of mine for a long time. I'm like, I don't really want to build something that I can't handle. Then you really need to think about listening to all these other entrepreneurs and business owners and leaders who are basically telling you the secret to how it's done. I always I want to know behind the curtain, how are you really doing all these things? This is it. This is how they're doing it, because nobody is doing this alone. You will never meet a multiple 6-figure, 7-figure, multiple 7-figure company that the CEO is running the show. Like, they're the ideator, the creator, the visionary, and they always have other people on staff or, employment or contract labor or whatever that is helping them manage the day-to-day task. And that is not where your creative genius needs to be. And I would just really encourage you to think about that, and think about that twice before, you let this opportunity pass you by.
Okay. Well, I can't say it better than that, y'all. There you go. I mean, there you go.
It's true. Every word of it is true. Like, I can sit here today and say that was the secret. Definitely that was one of the biggest secrets that that I needed to know. And now that I've implemented it, it's just freed up everything.
April, thank you so much. I'm going to let you get back to your wonderful life. The kids are probably back in school or about to head back to school, right? So it's end of daytime. So I'm going to let you go and do all that good stuff. And again, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime. It is my pleasure.